The bill that sets the stage for pharmacare in Canada is now law. That means Canadians could soon see free contraceptives and diabetes medications. But first, the federal government has to ink deals with the provinces and territories. Health Minister Mark Holland is confident they'll all sign on by the spring.
Can we not agree that everybody deserves the medication that they need? Can we not agree that we need to live in a society where people have access to the medication that will stop them from getting sick? And I think with that spirit, it absolutely is possible to get this done. And I think this Canadian population wants it to get done, because I think we all understand that this gap in our healthcare system must be closed. We may disagree on exactly how to close it, but that's not a reason to abandon the field and abandon people who need medication.
Today, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh warned the Liberals not to drag their feet getting deals done with provinces. Peter Julian is the NDP House Leader, and he joins me now. Mr. Julian, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you on such a historic day.
Well, the bill is through the Senate. It's received royal assent, but the coverage won't actually exist until there's some deals done with provinces. So will the NDP support this government in confidence votes until they sign deals with provinces?
Well, Jagmeet Singh said this morning, we believe the Liberals have a moral responsibility to move forward swiftly on this. I think Mark Holland, the health minister, understands that. The reality is that there are Canadians, millions of Canadians, that are paying sometimes as high as $1,000 or $1,500 every month for their diabetes medication and devices. The Canadian Federation of Nurses Union estimates we lose between 200 or 300 Canadians every year who can't afford to pay for their diabetes medication and devices. When you think about it, David, that's one almost every day who loses their life because we don't have universal pharmacare in place for diabetes medication. So given that imperative, the government has a responsibility to move forward rapidly. There are a lot of provinces that have expressed an interest. They could move forward rapidly and sign those agreements and start to get those drugs in people's hands so that they actually don't have to worry from day to day as to whether or not they're going to remain in good health.
Right. There are a lot of provinces that have expressed interest, but also a lot of that said no, or that have expressed discontent with what's being proposed here. And even if they're willing, this is going to take some time because of the implications it has. So Mark Holland, who does say he wants to move on this, he's talking about by the spring. So what's your deadline for Mark Holland to deliver on this?
There are provinces that are ready to move forward immediately. British Columbia has already signed a memorandum of understanding. The provincial election is next Saturday. The BC NDP government is re-elected, which seems to be increasingly likely. Then that is one of the first provinces that should be signed, and the medication should be flowing. And this is again a matter of life or death when you talk about losing a Canadian almost every day as a result of not being able to afford their diabetes medication and devices.
Look, if David Eby wins, his government is re-elected, then I would take your point that the NDP may very well move quickly. But even that might take weeks, might take months. He's going to have to swear in a new cabinet and do a new throne speech and all of that. So they're going to be busy on their end, right? So it takes the provinces to also be able to negotiate this. So, I mean, how do you, I guess, force or compel the government to do this now that you're no longer in the supply and confidence agreement?
This is moral suasion. When we're losing Canadians' lives, when we know that there are millions of Canadians that are struggling to pay for their medication, also the fact it has an impact on our acute care system. When people can't afford their diabetes medication and devices, they end up in hospital. And that is a huge cost to our acute care system. Canada is the only country that has universal health care that doesn't have universal pharmacare. And that's why Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have been pushing this for so long, to actually put in place pharmacare in Canada. You'll recall 3.5 years ago, I presented a bill on the NDP's behalf for universal pharmacare. Liberals and Conservatives voted against it. It was a dumb move on their part to vote against it at the time. Now we finally have that first step, an important step in terms of pharmacare. Let's get this done. The government has that moral obligation to move forward quickly. And as you know from the bill itself, David, there's also a number of other things that kick in that must be reported back within 364 days as of last night, 1 year of last night. And that includes the committee of experts, that includes the formulary nationally, and it also includes the bulk purchasing strategy, so that everything is in place to actually expand and put in place pharmacare, not just for diabetes medication and devices, but also for heart disease medication and for many others. Life-saving medication that when Canadians can't afford to pay for it, they go into the hospital or worse, they die.
Everything is in place for the government to deliver on this except political stability and a guarantee of enough runway to get it done. Because if you take Mark Holland at his word that it's going to take until the spring to finalize some of these agreements, I'm not sure they're going to make it to the spring. You're in the House of Commons every day, or just about every day. You see what's happening in there. And the way you talk about this as a matter of life and death, if it's that important, you tore up the supply and confidence agreement, which would have carried this Parliament through to June. Would have gotten all of this done. I mean, you've put the very program you say will save and change lives at risk because there is a growing sense that this Parliament is not for long.
I would say that we have given all of the tools to the government to get this done. If it's not done, it's because the government isn't prioritizing it. And I think the fact that the NDP has done all the heavy lifting on this now for more than a decade, particularly in the last 2 years, working constantly, pushing. You'll recall last March, as House Leader, I had to basically stop moving government bills through the House of Commons because the Liberals were refusing to sit down and finalize the Pharmacare Act. So the NDP has done all of the heavy lifting on this, right, and we're proud of that. But now all those tools have been given to the government. And for the government to say, well, no, we're going to rag the puck, we're going to take more time than it needs, I think would be irresponsible given the context, as I pointed out, that it is life or death for so many people. Well, Liberals have been they've been promising this for decades. The NDP has been pushing this even to the point of bringing legislation, as I did 3.5 years ago. Now is the time to implement. All the tools are there. The government has a responsibility to act.
Well, look, I don't know if they're ragging the puck in negotiations or not, and you do need to have willing partners across the table, and it is not universal with the provinces. Alberta says it just wants the money. Quebec is obviously always concerned about its jurisdiction, so it's not going to be an easy and quick fix there. But the political challenge, Mr. Julian, because I want to play a clip of Pierre Poilievre. He was on CP24 today, and he was asked about this. I want you to listen to what the leader of the Conservative Party had to say and get your response on the other side.
We were not going to have a single-payer system that bans you and union workers and countless other people from keeping the excellent private plans they already have. And Trudeau and the NDP, frankly, they risk, if you vote for them, you risk losing your drug plan and getting a badly run, extremely expensive, slow government plan to replace it.
So that sounds like, should he win, as the poll suggests, this plan will not survive. And he's also raising some things that are alarming to people that I know some people say are not true. But what are your thoughts on what he's saying there about the impact of this on private plans?
Well, Pierre Poilievre is an architect of disinformation, so he puts information out that he knows is false. He was wrong on dental care, and what's fascinating about the NDP's dental care plan is we've seen in the first 22 weeks of that program, 750,000 Canadians already having access to dental services, many for the first time in their adult lives. This is remarkable, and what I'm hearing in Westminster, for example, is people saying, well, I've always voted Conservative. I'm voting NDP next time because the NDP delivered on dental care. So Pierre Poilievre threatening to cut all of these programs that people actually benefit from and depend on, I think is a risky scenario for him. And spreading disinformation, of course, is something that he's done throughout his career. I don't think it will serve him well in the next election campaign.
I've watched your leader, certainly since the supply and confidence agreement ended, raise a lot of questions about the competence of this government and their ability to deliver on things. And now you're kind of counting on them to deliver complex pharmacare deals in a very short time frame. I mean, how confident are you that a government you think can't do the job can do this job?
We're confident we've given all the tools to the government. We have passed the bill. We've ensured that everything is in place. I do believe Mark Holland understands the importance and the gravity of this, and we know that there are provinces that are willing to step up. And I will also mention that even in Quebec, one of the biggest coalitions in Quebec history moved forward to praise and ask for support for the NDP's bill on pharmacare, because they see the holes in the existing Quebec system, and they want to make sure that all Quebecers have access to medication. So even in Quebec, there is a push, some pressure from the public to actually move forward with this. In other provinces as well, there may be conservative premiers that are reluctant for ideological reasons. Right. As we saw with universal health care, when conservative premiers opposed on ideological grounds, either they changed their minds or the people of those provinces change government. And I think that's something that Conservatives are aware of. The popularity of these programs, the fact that people are getting supports, is something that the Conservatives have to be wary of.
Why don't you accept, just as a final question, why don't you accept Mr. Holland's timeline that it could take until the spring? Because you do need to do the negotiations, and presumably they need some sort of money to put behind the program, to pay for things if it's going to come from a single payer thing, and that requires a budget and a vote in Parliament. I mean, it seems to me the spring is a realistic time frame. Why isn't it realistic to you?
I didn't say it was unrealistic. I said that there are funds that have already been established by the last budget that is already through.
Sorry,
Again,
reasonable is what I meant, not realistic. Sorry.
Well, the tools are already in place. There are provinces that want to step up immediately. There is no reason for delay. Moving forward promptly on those agreements make a lot of sense. I think Mark Holland understands that. There may be some provinces that oppose on an ideological basis, that they're not willing to help the citizens of their province, I think is passing strange, and I think they'll be judged on that. But my point is this. We have given all the tools to the Liberal government to follow up and to follow through on this. And we expect, as Jagmeet Singh said in directing his message to the Prime Minister this morning, that we expect the Liberals will do the responsible thing and take the tools we've given them and put them into place in the coming weeks.
NDP House Leader Peter Julian, thank you for your time today, sir.
My pleasure, and happy Thanksgiving.